Hello, everyone, and welcome to Anselmo Academy of Music and the Arts. And we are live on Facebook. Welcome, everyone. We continue with our online masterclass series by inviting well-known professors and talented students to participate. And today we are honored to have Dr. Kirill Gliadkovsky and his student, Jaden Wu. Thank you so much for joining us. Hello.
Hello.
I'd like to give a brief introduction about our guests. Can we please have Kirill's profile picture on the screen? Wonderful, thank you. Since making his first public appearance in Moscow at the age of 6, Mr. Gliadkovsky has toured extensively on 3 continents, performing piano and organ recitals, and as a soloist with orchestras in various cities in Russia, including Moscow's prestigious Bolshoi, Mali, and Rachmaninoff halls, St. Petersburg Philharmonic Glinka Hall, as well as in Italy, UK, Poland, Mongolia, Canada, Japan, and throughout the United States. The venues included Purcell Hall in London, Merking Hall in New York, and Jack Singer Hall in Calgary, among many others. He has performed at various music festivals such as Aspen, Ventura, Music in the Mountains, and many more, and worked with well-known conductors like Pierre Boulez, Mihail Mehta, and more. Kirill, his wife Anna, and their 2 daughters, Anastasia and Sophia, perform as a family piano ensemble, both nationally and internationally. How good is that? Dr. Gladkovsky combines his busy concert schedule with teaching at Saddleback College as a professor of piano and director of keyboard studies. Prior to coming to Saddleback, he has been on piano faculty at USC and Santa Monica College and served as the head of the piano area at Southern Utah University and Cedar City, Utah. Mr. Gladkovsky has been in demand as a masterclass artist teacher, guest lecturer, and piano adjudicator. His students have won prizes in various piano contests and have been accepted to schools like UCLA, Manhattan School of Music, and Northwestern University, among many others, often with fellowship and scholarship awards. And last but not least, he has recently published an article on artistic pedaling in California Music Teacher magazine and an interview about piano technique. Wonderful. And a few words about Jaden Wu. Can we please have Jaden's picture on the screen? Wonderful, thank you. Jaden Wu started his piano studies at the age of 7 with Dr. Angelika Prodan, and in this past year, concurrently with Dr. Kirill Gliadkovsky, who have worked to help him grow as a musician. Jaden is currently a 10th grader attending Orange County School of the Arts. In addition to his amazing piano conservatory teachers at school, Jaden has had the honor of participating in master classes from world-renowned pianists, including Dmitry Rachmaninoff, Antoinette Perry, and Anna Fedorova, among many others. Okay, Jaden is a 4-time consecutive gold medal winner of the Southern California Junior Bach Festival, a 5-time first prize winner of the Inland Empire Piano Festival, and a 6-time winner of the Steinway Riverside Piano Competition. He has many more accolades, and I'm just going to mention that his recent awards include the North International Music Competition and the MTAC Solo Competition. Welcome to both of you. And Kirill, we're going to pass on the baton, so to speak, to you and Jaden. Thank you so much for participating, and I'm going to disappear.
Thank you for Jaden, why don't you tell the pieces you're going to start from?
I'll be playing WTC Bach's WTC Book 1 in A minor, Prelude and Fugue.
And also?
Lieberman's Gargoyles, the first movement.
Okay, excellent. Go for it. So why don't we stop here and work a little bit on the Bach first. We've been working on this for a few weeks, and Jaden, you made a tremendous progress. Yeah, really sounds a lot more meaningful, better. You know, the dynamics we talked about, terrace dynamics, in the fugue especially, came out much better. So in the prelude, that's for everybody what we were talking about, just to give you a little bit of background. This is A minor prelude, book 1, a well-tempered clavier by Bach, and it's in 9/8, and it's in triplets as well. There, well, groups of three groups of three. We know from many sources, musicological sources and also biographical sources, that Bach was very versed in what's called rhetorical figures, or you know, philosophical ideas and religious ideas painted in music, in other words. So the time signature, 9/8, and the way the music is grouped in groups of three, so 3 times 3, it relates to the idea of Holy Trinity. And if you look at the number of measures in this prelude, it has 27 measures. So 3 times 3 times 3, or third degree cubed 3 is 27, plus 1. So this is 28, measure 28 is just the A major chord. So there is definitely, everything is based on the idea of this number, and it's not accidental. Those numbers, Bach was very well aware of what he was doing. So we tried to work on that. We also know that from sources that there are a lot of biblical stories that he tried to sort of musically paint in those preludes and fugues. Not in his secular works such as partitas or suites or other, you know, toccatas, but in preludes and fugues, and especially the organ preludes and fugues, but also well-tempered clavier, definitely there is a lot of interesting rhetorical figures suggesting things like crucifixion, resurrection, and other biblical references. So this is one of them. And as far as getting to the Baroque interpretation part of this prelude, I think your drive and agitation are excellent, but you're playing it a little bit too romantically. You're doing I mean, crescendo like that is great for Rachmaninoff or Schumann, but I think for Bach, we need to stay on one level longer to preserve the terrace nature of dynamics. Maybe 4 measures like that. And then if you want, the next 4 measure section could be louder. That's how you build Bach. Otherwise, the crescendo, given right away from beginning, is a little bit incompatible with what we know about the instruments and interpretation of Baroque pieces. So let's try that. By the way, your terrace dynamics in the fugue were very authentic and really well done. But prelude, I think, can use a little bit more work. Let me just check something real quick on the screen here. Speaker, okay. Let's try one more time, the prelude. So it doesn't mean necessarily that you have to start piano. You can start on any level you want. And you can build a little bit within that, let's say you choose piano. You can go to maybe mezzo piano until you change the level completely. So that's what terraces are for. Or maybe you want to start from mezzo forte. Or if you start from mezzo forte, you can go up to forte, but not into fortissimo. If you start on the forte, you can go a little bit above the forte, or a little bit below it, but not too fortissima either. You know, like if you start fortissima, then you don't go into piano or mezzo forte. You know, that's the idea. So you have the sort of layered structure dynamically, what's called terrace dynamic. But your articulation is really good, the sense of rhythm is really good, and it's an excellent drive. Let's try one more time. Much better. Maybe I'll keep the microphone right next to me so you can hear me better. Very good. The only thing, be careful not to rush. Like a little, getting a little bit rushed. So be careful not to do that. But dynamics were better. So let's try one more time. So hold your horses. Okay, better. Let me show you something else. So it's still maybe you're starting a little too soft for this piece. Then it kind of forces you to go much better. Soon, you know, and then what about this next section? So we are in A minor, then the same melody we had in the right hand goes in the left hand. That's called the vertical contrapoint, right? So it's in a different key, or you can call it canonic imitation. Now we're in key of E minor. What does it mean to be in the key of A minor compared to A minor? You go up a fifth. Going up a fifth, do you think it should be louder or softer?
Louder.
Louder, right? Because that's how composers, even on harpsichord or even on the organ, which does not have the crescendo or diminuendo, it does change volume, the tension of the strings a little bit, the way the voicing is. Or at least it is perceived that way. So it should be noticeably louder. Another reason why it needs to be louder is because it's in the left hand now. So before it was in the right hand. Soprano. So it's much easier to hear soprano versus the bass working against the upper voices. So the material of the left hand goes into the right hand. Material of the right hand goes into the left hand. It's actually called double contrapoint. So, or double canonic imitation. Now we're key of E minor. So the melody part you want to bring the most. I mean, both hands are melodic and they're valuable. But more importantly is this. Needs to be played extra clearly because it's working against the right hand. So let's try that. And then next one is, so you could be much louder here. And then you go up an octave. If this was on a harpsichord or organ, you could use the lighter stops here on a different manual, like such as a 4-foot stop on a harpsichord, which brings it, because it's up an octave, suddenly your left hand is. So, versus this. In the same key, but closer together, to me it tells that he wants to drop it here. drop the volume. So try to drop the volume more, and then it goes for a couple of measures. So then this, and then you have C major. So C major maybe a little, well, actually, keep it in 4 measure chunks. That would be more logical. Then you have a real arrival in C major, measure 13. That could be your much bigger. So the plan is here. Let's try something like this, like mezzo forte, forte in the left hand. Keep right hand mezzo forte. Then go to piano, mezzo piano, and then go to real forte, or even a little bit above the forte here. See what happens. Okay, you did really good here. This one could be a little bit more. And then don't do any diminuendo anticipating this soft section. Otherwise, it's like spoils the effect. So let's try one more time. It was better. Not so much, not so much. Because you're going to have a soft next measure. Bigger because that's a C major. Comparing to A minor. So it's more positive, more kind of optimistic, right here? Not less worrying, right? So how about from here? Be soft here. Don't go crescendo yet. Go louder here. Bravo, much better. Couple of other things, Jaden, let me show you. Whenever you have an entrance of that main tune, every 4 measures you need to lift before it. So don't go, I'll slow motion. That would be wrong to do. You need a break. So every time that happens, so that gives it more of a notice and more of kind of a statement that something is happening. And it's actually part of Baroque interpretation on the harpsichord and organ that if there is an important note, we need to lift more before it and also hang on a little bit longer. So you can play that E slightly longer, you know, to a point. So it's okay to hang on the first note slightly longer, but more importantly, a lift before it. Then where is the next one? Don't go. That would be wrong to do. You need like a micro split second lift before it. So every time. And then before C major, even though it looks like a bunch of 16 notes goes right into C major, but don't. So you need a little break. Same here, before this. And then every time, right? So that's one thing. Second thing, your 16 notes shaping is much better than before, but can still be improved. So there is a method of practicing Bach with exaggerated dynamics, just opposite of what I was telling Jaden to do with the terrace dynamics. If there are a lot of running notes, there is always a danger in every piece of music, not just Bach, whether it's Chopin, Beethoven, Rachmaninoff, or Bach, that they will sound mechanical. So the cure for this would be to play with exaggerated dynamics. What is exaggerated dynamics? So for example, if there is an extended 16-note passage such as we don't want it to hear it in a mechanical way. Although, sometimes we do hear it like that on recordings and such. But I would much prefer more a differentiated shaping where the first note is given a little bit more emphasis. Maybe a little lift before it. And in order to practice it like it was a Chopin nocturne or something. In a stylistically wrong way, but what it will give you is when you go up to tempo and with the terrace dynamics, you will always have shaping. So all of your 16 notes will be shaped. I called it practicing with exaggerated dynamics. You should do it in a slower tempo and don't worry about the style at that point because that's done for a different reason. One more thing about this prelude and we'll go to the fugue. You have excellent drive and tempo, but in order not to lose the beat, sometimes you have a slight tendency to rush. Feel more in 3. So feel, especially beat 3 is important. 1 and 3. 2 is less important. Some sort of a dance, So we need to feel that. If you have that feel emphasizing beat 1 and 3 more, then you will never rush. Yeah? Okay, very good. So for the fugue, really much better. It's such a complicated fugue, 6 pages, one of the longest in well-tempered clavier, if not the longest. I'd like to start maybe from the back of it because there's a lot of improvement. In the beginning parts, we analyzed the fugue, how complex it is. It has basically such an extended developing section. Most fugues have exposition, which is usually the number of voices in the fugue. In this case, it's 4 voices. Sometimes there is an additional subject in the exposition in the same key. And when the main key ends, we talk about a developing section of the fugue. And in this, fugue, there is like 3 developing sections, or even more, or you can consider it one huge developing section. It's like never ending there. So normally if the fugue is only 2 pages, normally exposition is maybe like 3 or 4 lines, developing section maybe 5, 6 lines, a couple of lines for the recapitulation. Well, that's not the case in this fugue. It's multiple pages for the developing section. So there are many terrace crescendos you can build here for those climaxes. Usually Bach's fugue have three climaxes, three main climaxes. It's either the second or the third or the biggest. First one in exposition, another one is in developing section, and then one at the recapitulation. So that's how it goes. Often the one falling in the developing section falls onto so-called golden mean section, which is about 62% of the piece. And that's where the main climax often is, but not always. Sometimes Bach pushes it to the end. There are a lot of strettas in this fugue. Strettas is when we have one subject, the second subject entering before the first one is finished playing. So there is a lot of stretta. I call my students, it's called stretta. I tell my students that it's called stretta because it's stressful for performers to play the strettas, and surely is. It's very difficult, but you're doing really, really well on that. So, what about the ending? Very unusual ending, kind of a free fan at the end. So you have those harmonies. And actually the same harmonies in the prelude. They call, there is a certainly allusion to Bach vocal works here to me. Some of his cantatas, St. Matthew Passion, St. John Passion, Bach B minor, Mass, you know, the Kirill. Or Et Incarnatus later in the same B minor Mass. Anyway, very dramatic, not a usual harmony for a fugue at all. And then so I would bring it out more. I wouldn't do any diminuendos here. This is the essence of the fugue. That's where it's all coming from. Also unusual that in the fugue he has a fermata, and I suggested to Jaden, you can do a little improvisation here, you know. It can be as simple as a rolling chord up and down, or you can do a trill, a little recitative there, or whatever you want. And then there is one more stop. So you can similarly do something here. It's definitely in a tradition of Baroque to do it. When you, so make sure you bring it out. Don't do any diminuendos, actually crescendo towards this chord, if anything. Or keep the intensity. Make sure the chords are off at the same time. If you're going to use pedal at all, and I think you should, make sure the hands and pedal are off at the same time. So releases are important. That some of the releases were not on time. Make sure left hand is only quarter note. This one, I think you released the right hand really well, but the left hand hangs for longer. So make sure. That sort of thing, right? Then you need to do something about that bass note at the end, which is impossible to play the way it's written. Another interesting thing, it's like written for a pedal harpsichord or something, or organ, because you need your feet to hold the note. So my suggestion is use the sostenuto pedal for that note. So like this, play this chord, release it, push the sostenuto pedal, then you have that bass held. Okay, let's work on the ending a little bit. Start from here? Yeah, why not? No. You didn't, did you? You need to play the chord, play the chord, release the right hand, really, and then push the pedal now, not the left pedal, sostenuto pedal, middle pedal. Release the chord. Yes. Now it's there. Somehow have to hold that note too. So refinger it. So you'll have 1, 2, 3, 5, no 6 notes at the end, because that A is also being held. So he goes into it's another interesting thing in this fugue, which is unique for Bach. He goes into 6 voices in the 4-voice fugue, which is highly unusual. He has a couple of 6-voice fugues for organ and choral fugues, but never he goes into 6. Almost never in non-organ pieces or non-choral works, because it's impossible to control those voices. But he does here, so he goes into 6 voices at the end, which is dramatization. Definitely he wants an increase here of feelings, emotions, intensity. So don't just pass through this section. Also, I think you can have more rubatos here. We usually talk about Bach, a lot of teachers think about Bach in terms of very strict rhythm and such. And sometimes it's appropriate, but not always. In this case, it's like a little improvisational section here, almost like a fantasy at the end. So you can have, and you should have some rubatos here. So slow down. One more time. Let's try. That's the idea. Now, as far as the Backhand Pedal, many teachers argue about that. Should we use Bach pedal in Bach or not? Yes, sometimes, like on the chords and arpeggios, why not? On the scale like passages, I would be careful not to, but anything arpeggiated, they were holding extra notes back then because of the lack of pedal, so-called finger pedaling. So you create the chord. So you can actually finger pedal this in the absence of pedal. That's called finger pedaling effect, which was well known for harpsichordists or organists, and especially harpsichordists. Organ doesn't need much of that. So you can do some of that here at the end, because you should create as much intensity and volume as possible. And some actual pedaling would help resonate the chord, especially in this room kind of dry. Okay, so in the beginning of the fugue was really, really good. I'm not going to tell you anything. Don't forget to breathe before each subject. Like take a little break similar to the prelude. Can you show me how you're going to do it? Like pick it up somewhere here. Dynamics even more. So each subject adds a layer of volume and it's like a new terrace. It's also sound a lot more like organ or orchestra, very good. So there are a lot of 16 notes here, and you're shaping them much better than before, but there is still room for improvement. I would continue working melodically on all 16 notes, running 16 notes in both the fugue and the prelude. One more thing, if there is a syncopation somewhere, like in the left hand, for example, it's always accented. Da 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 da. That's the purpose of the syncopation. Actually, it goes across any style, whether it's Bach, Chopin, or Gershwin. Syncopated notes need to be brought out, meaning accented. Somebody put emphasis on the beat 4. No, instead it should be end of 4. Da 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 da. Try just the left hand there. Pick it up from. A little more than that. So don't play too much on this, so you have some room to go more. Yes. Exactly. Don't cut this note short. Yes, exactly. So make sure the length of the notes, and there are a lot of syncopated notes in this particular fugue. It's not always the case. There are some fugues without any syncopated notes, but in this one there are some, quite a few. Always bring them out. So meaning break before, even if they go in a stepwise motion, like syncopated notes should always be separated in Baroque or early classical. What else to tell you? I think there are more things I'd like to talk about on the fugue, but I think we need to move on to Liberman. Otherwise, we're going to run out of time. Go for it. Okay. Very difficult piece, very well done. There is always room for improvement. Let me ask you a couple of questions. What other pieces which start trumpet-like sound with 3 notes. Not necessarily going up or down, but do you know any others? There's a very famous piece by a romantic composer which starts on the same notes but in different octaves. So that's an interesting allusion, or I don't know if it's accidental or not. Mussorgsky pictures, yeah. There are many others. I mean, there are works, a lot of symphonic works have a trumpet-like sounds, and the 3 notes is, again, number 3 we're seeing here. What are the gargoyles, by the way? Do you know what gargoyles?
Yeah, they're like ugly stuff.
Yeah. So, what was the purpose of gargoyles? What?
Like, they were meant to ward off evil spirits, but they were pretty ugly.
Yeah, yeah. There was some sort of a superstition, or because you're not supposed to ward off evil spirits with even more evil things, but you're supposed to ward them off with kind things, but that's how they thought of it. And yes, so they tried to outdo the. But they were not always like necessarily intended for that. They were first decorative statues on in a certain period of time period in architecture on some cathedrals in Europe, especially. And initially they were purely decorative, and then they were kind of perceived as to be, like what you just mentioned. So that's why there is a lot of dissonance here in this piece. You playing with really good drive, your fingers really, really good. Be careful and to be very, very steady, because the tempo is already presto. So feel the beat, like great steadiness. I don't mean to be any slower than what you played. You can even go faster if you want to, but like all is controlled. Yeah. Although it's a big improvement comparing to what I've heard. So what are the technical difficulties here, and how do you want to practice them?
Some of the hardest things were like the jumps from
the jumps,
and then the rhythm, getting the rhythm right, and also the passages while keeping them fast yet still clear.
Still clear. Yeah. So how do we work on these things?
Slow practice. And
slow practice. Okay. Loud or soft?
I would believe softer.
Softer. Okay. There is a couple of different opinions. It's good to practice contrasting dynamics. If something is really loud, it's good to practice pianissimo, like pianissimo. So if you have like a really loud, that section, and it actually is good to practice slowly and really, really soft. That's one point. Another pointer is people think, we need to give our fingers sort of conditioning, and like physical conditioning, like if we do any kind of sports. A lot of playing piano is physical work, so practicing fortissimo also makes sense. Practicing with exaggerated dynamics makes sense here as well, just like I mentioned in Bach. So everything is melodically shaped. So that would be the third way of practicing. Anything fast in any period of music could be practiced with dotted rhythms, right? So practicing that with dotted rhythms will give you more speed. And you know that dotted rhythms can be practiced with movable long note, meaning like let's say there is a passage. You don't have to always make the first note the longest. You can make the second note the longest. the fourth, and so on. So all fingers will have a chance to stay on the long notes. On the long note, when you make the long note, any note of a group. So I would practice with that movable long note, movable dot, I call it. I think one of the hardest forms of technique here is the alternating hands. It's really, really hard. Fast and super loud, and at the end, it's also starts piano, and then it increases greatly. How do we practice this section? Can you show me?
Yeah.
Yes, we talked about that before.
And then.
Yes, so that's one of the methods. Then you can hear your rhythmic unevenness, if there are any rhythmic, unevenness very well. Also, that motion, initially you can just practice try that just any wooden surface. Yeah, you hear it a little bit, right? Yeah, so get that going first, because that's the most basic. It's like percussive, right? So the percussion is the old practice, that kind of exercise, call it roll, right? The roll is the most basic percussion exercise. They have to get their left and right hand alternated very well in any tempo. Slow roll, fast roll. So it's a good exercise to be practicing. You can do it on your lap. It doesn't have to be on wood. You can just you can as long as you can hear that, you don't need to have any keys sounding at that point. Then you can go into the actual notes once that's get. So let's do a little bit like this. So how about practicing on your lap? Just keep going. Getting better, getting better. Okay, go faster now. Faster roll. Not bad. Can you go faster? How fast do you want this to sound? Show on the piano first how fast you want to go. Do that on your lap first. Nice. Good. Now do it in reality on the piano. How did it feel?
It was much easier.
Much easier. Because you have to get that motion going without piano first. It's a physical motion of alternating hands. It doesn't have to be necessarily practiced on the keys. So that's would be one suggestion. Now don't forget, this is supposed to start on piano, so it was a little too loud. You can practice soft roll on your lap. Get loud. You see, when you get louder, you lose the alternation a little bit. Let's try one more time. Soft roll. Wait, which hand has the beat? No.
Oh,
left. Left. Get louder. So you see, you can do loud really well, you can do soft really well, but not a crescendo. It gets off. I don't want to put you on the spot by doing this, but it's a good exercise to be able to do it first. Let's try one more time, and then we'll try from soft to loud on the piano. One more time. Try to keep go by your left hand. Okay, try on the piano. maybe once a measure, a little bit. Don't overdo it. Let's try it. Okay, much better, much better. Don't forget, this is fortissimo, so you can really pound it out. Although I don't like that word on the piano, but here it's appropriate. Try it. Maybe on the considering how dry this room is, maybe consider doing a little bit of pedal on the fortissimo portion only.
Would it be pumping?
Yes, yes, flutter pedal. Yeah, let's try a little bit. Right on the fortissimo. Better, better. Now, before fortissimo comes on, it's a change of register, a big change in of the register. Because left hand was before in the bass clef, suddenly it's in the treble clef. Take a little lift, like Bach subject or the prelude we talked about. Take a little breath there. So it will be easier and it will emphasize that register change, like a little bit of a terrace. Terrace dynamics don't need to be always in Baroque music only. They could be in Romantic or contemporary music. So do a little bit of a terrace here, especially in the left hand. Maybe pick it up like measure before or something, and then little lift right before. No. Yeah, it gives you a millisecond to regroup. And it's easier for you, it's easier for your listeners, because give us a chance to digest what we just heard, right? So that's another important thing. Now this passage, the right hand is much harder, but your left hand seems to be having more difficulties than the right. Can I hear the left hand alone? Yeah, better. One more time. Yes. With the right hand, and listen to the left though. Technically speaking, there is no ritenuto here. Try to almost not to slow down. Better. Now there is a little bit of a timing issue. 5 against 3 is a hard thing to do. But don't worry about actually being mathematically exact. Rather, be together on the first notes of each group. And that's what's important. You were not, if I listen really carefully, you were not 100% together on the first note. There is really only one note you're supposed to be together, only the first note. Because 5 against 3, you don't coincide anywhere else. You're not supposed to be together anywhere else. So all of it is approximate, but the first notes are exactly together. So let's try, like, listen for the togetherness. Try slowly. Maybe I can suggest, let me think, maybe a little bit different fingering. What if you go in one position and then you change in 5-finger position? 5-finger, and then 1, and then 1 again. Yeah, so you know how Liszt played chromatic scales with 5 fingers? Yeah, yes. So that's how the scales in Spanish Rhapsody should be played, with also the regular scales with 5 fingers. So he had a completely different fingering. Maybe this is appropriate here as well, because it's super fast and it will force you to slightly accent those notes. You know, you you can play with that. I'm not insisting that it has to be, but you know, like whatever you do, make sure we are hearing this, you know. Sorry. What's the next one? So exactly on the where it's supposed to be together. Other sections, I know we're running out of time. Similarly, like there is a huge crescendo, but still take a little breath, like a little lift fortissimo. So, and because what happened, you stressed out a little bit on this passage, and you came into this difficult passage with tense hands, and you did well, but you could have done better if you had a little breather here, and that way allow yourself to relax a little bit. Let's try that passage, and then we'll finish. Yeah, that's the idea. Maybe a little too much now, but yeah. What if you do one pedal for the entire scale? Yeah, could be if like with the pedal, but you need to voice it in a such way that you start from soft to loud. So otherwise, if you're in the play a scale on one pedal with the same volume, it's going to sound awfully muddy. You need to make a huge crescendo on the scale, so each consecutive note covers the previous note. Then you can do long pedal on like non-compatible notes. So that key actually indicates that you start with a forte or sforzando, then piano and crescendo molto. So like you need to drop. So G flat should be super soft. It stays softer longer, by the way. Okay, yeah, that's the idea. Maybe it was a little too much. Okay, well, there are more things to say here, but I think we're out of time, right, Vera? Do we still have time, or we're out of time?
Yes, we are out of time, actually.
Okay.
So yes, thank you so much, Kirill and Jaden, for participating. Thanks everyone for watching. It's been a fantastic experience for all of us, and we wish you and Jaden all the best. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Of course.